Sheila didn't knock when she walked into Deacon's apartment that night. She never did. She moved like someone who knew her presence couldn't be denied, like someone who had already written the ending before the first act even began. Her lipstick was too red. Her heels too high for someone claiming to carry life inside her, but that didn't stop her from producing a crisp envelope and dropping it on the table between them with a smirk that barely concealed the storm brewing beneath. "I'm pregnant, Deacon," she said flatly, eyes locked on his. "And it's yours." He didn't reach for the papers immediately. He just stared at her, waiting for the punchline, the twist, the classic Sheila pivot into madness. But she didn't blink. When he finally opened the envelope, the proof was all there. Ultrasound images dated just 2 weeks prior, beta HCG numbers that confirmed a viable early pregnancy, all filed under her name. But it wasn't the documents that made Deacon's throat tighten, it was her tone. This wasn't a woman sharing joy. This was a warning shot, a loaded weapon on the table. Then came the ask, or rather, the demand. "I want you to stop seeing Taylor. Not just as your therapist," she said, tilting her head, "but completely. Personally, emotionally, all of it. You're with me now, or you're out of this baby's life." Deacon's chest tightened. Sheila wasn't making a plea, she was making a move. Strategic, calculated, and perfectly timed. When he told Taylor, her reaction wasn't shock, it was surgical. Calm, clinical, direct. She asked to see the documentation. She analyzed the timing. Then she said the one thing that cracked through Sheila's entire performance. These numbers don't align with ovulation. If she conceived when she claims, her levels would be higher or lower. But not this. Not exactly this. Taylor requested an independent test. A full hormonal panel, verified chain of custody, and imaging done at a third-party lab. Sheila, caught off guard, laughed it off at first. "Oh, please, Taylor. This isn't a courtroom. It's real life. Maybe you should try living in it sometime." But Taylor pressed forward. Too precise, too uncheckable. And that's when Sheila panicked. 2 days later, under the radar, Sheila met with a nurse at the women's clinic, someone whose debts and addiction had made them vulnerable to the right kind of pressure. A swap. A simple change of sample labels. She didn't need to alter the whole test, just enough to delay Taylor's suspicion. Just enough to keep Deacon tethered, confused, and sure. Meanwhile, Taylor sent the documentation to a third lab on her own. Independent, secure, unconnected to any of the major hospitals where Sheila had sway. It took 5 days, but when the results came back, they cracked the entire lie in half. The ultrasound images claimed to be recent had been reused, identical to those taken from a different patient nearly 3 years ago. A woman named Raquel, who had filed for prenatal care under a program Sheila once worked with during her stint as a clinic volunteer. The metadata matched. The skin number matched. And just like that, the house of cards collapsed. Taylor went to Deacon first. She's lying. She's not pregnant. The ultrasound is recycled, and her test data was tampered with. "You've been manipulated." Again, Deacon was quiet at first. He didn't need to scream. The truth hit harder in silence. He remembered the glances, the timing, the convenient emotional leverage every time he stepped closer to clarity with Taylor. Sheila had known exactly when to strike, and now he saw it. He confronted her at the A.L. Giardino bar after closing. "You used a fake pregnancy to trap me." Sheila didn't deny it. Not directly. She just stared back, a wounded look painted perfectly across her face. "I did what I had to do. You were slipping away. And I couldn't lose you, not to Taylor. Not to anyone. You lied to me, Sheila," he growled. "You lied about a baby." "I lied," she admitted, voice cracking, "because I love you." He turned to leave. But she wasn't done. "Wait," she said. "You think that's all I have?" He paused. "I knew you'd go to Taylor. I knew you'd dig. So I made sure there was a truth you couldn't ignore." She reached into her bag and pulled out another folder. this one stamped with the logo of a fertility center outside Ventura. She slid it toward him. Read it. Inside, official paperwork from a cryopreservation facility. A single page confirming the existence of frozen embryos. Biological markers, maternal donor unknown. Paternal, Deacon Sharp. He blinked. From when we were closer. From when you said maybe we'd have a future. I kept it. Quiet. Legal. Registered. And now it exists. Whether you believe in us or not, that's your DNA. Your blood. You stole this. I preserved this, she corrected. Long before you ever ran back to Taylor. It was checkmate. Not in love. Not in truth. But in raw biological leverage. Sheila had weaponized possibility, something that couldn't be disproven, couldn't be untangled without a court, a fight, a mess. Back at her place, she poured herself a drink, stared into the mirror, and whispered to no one, "You don't walk away from me, Deacon. Not when I've already made you a father." Deacon drove into the night, heart racing. Not from love, not from guilt, but from sheer dread. Because Sheila might not be pregnant now, but the future. She had her hooks in it already. Sheila Carter had always been dangerous, but this time she had crossed into something far more insidious, something methodical, patient, and chillingly precise. She knew she couldn't get pregnant. That ship had sailed years ago. But in her mind, biology was never a limitation. It was just an obstacle. And obstacles could be circumvented. So she did what no one expected. She hired a surrogate. Quietly. Discreetly. No announcements, no contracts that left a trail. Just one woman, carefully chosen, carefully silenced, and buried behind layers of cash and confidentiality. The goal was simple: trap Deacon. Bind him permanently, emotionally, and legally by making him believe they were having a child together. He'd never abandon his own flesh and blood. And Sheila, ever the manipulator, knew that in Deacon's broken, redemptive heart, fatherhood was his most sacred tether. If she could make him believe a child was on the way, everything else, his doubts, his feelings for Taylor, even his conscience would collapse under the weight of that one truth. So she faked it. Everything. The nausea in the mornings. The sudden need to sit. The carefully timed accidental drops of prenatal vitamins in his sink. She wore looser clothes, shifted her posture, even added subtle padding as the weeks passed. And Deacon, torn between disbelief and guilt, let himself believe. But faking a pregnancy wasn't enough. Sheila needed real medical evidence in case anyone started asking questions. She scheduled appointments, but never under her name. She used the surrogate's medical records, rewrote it through a shell alias, and brought home copies of ultrasounds, lab results, hormone panels. She showed them to Deacon with wide eyes and trembling hands, knowing exactly how to weaponize his vulnerability. For a while, it worked. Deacon was distant, conflicted, but compliant. He began pulling back from Taylor. He said he needed time to focus. He didn't say why, but Taylor felt it. The shift in his energy. The quiet way he avoided eye contact. The guilt. She pressed. And then she found the pharmacy receipt. At first glance, it meant nothing. Just a printed slip left in Deacon's kitchen by mistake. But Taylor had always been sharper than people gave her credit for. She noticed the name, Marla Kinney, not Sheila. And the medication progesterone, estrogen, was consistent with fertility protocols, not general pregnancy care. It was enough to raise flags. She began digging. And what she found unraveled the entire lie. A trail of medical appointments under the name Marla Kinney, all tied to a specific women's clinic in Silver Lake. Taylor requested access discreetly, citing professional interest in IVF research. What she uncovered stopped her cold. The records matched Sheila's pregnancy timeline. The due date, the hormone levels, the ultrasound images identical to the one Sheila had shown Deacon. But the patient wasn't Sheila. It was Marla. And Marla wasn't just a stranger. She had once been Taylor's patient. Years ago, After a traumatic breakup and a string of substance issues, Marla had come to Taylor for therapy. Taylor had helped her stabilize, rebuild, and eventually disappear from the chaos of LA. Now she was back in hiding again. It seemed, but this time carrying a child not for herself, but for someone else. And that someone had buried her behind a wall of lies. Taylor's next move was surgical. She confronted Sheila with quiet precision. No accusations, just facts. "You've been to Silver Lake Women's Clinic, haven't you?" she said. "Because I have. And I saw the records. The ones you faked." Sheila's mask cracked for only a moment. Then came the deflection, the tears, the wild justifications. "I didn't fake anything. Marla was helping me. I just needed time to figure out how to tell Deacon. He'd never understand. He'd think it was betrayal. But this baby, it's his, Taylor. It's his." "You're lying," Taylor said flatly. "You're using Marla's pregnancy to manipulate him. And I don't know how you convinced her to do it, but I guarantee she didn't agree to this circus." Sheila panicked. She couldn't afford for Taylor to get to Marla not before she cemented her story. So she did what she always did when the walls closed in. She went on offense. She forged the hospital records. Using her old connections and stolen access codes, Sheila altered Marla's file, erasing the surrogate designation and replacing the maternal identity with her own name. The edits were subtle, clean, and frighteningly convincing. On paper, Sheila was now the biological and gestational mother of Deacon's child. And she wasted no time. She presented the revised file to Deacon, frantic, trembling, clutching her stomach like she was protecting something fragile. "Taylor's lying," she said. "She's trying to destroy what we have. She's jealous. She's always hated me. But this is real, Deacon. I am pregnant. And I need you." Deacon, torn and tired, felt the full force of the lie. He wanted to believe, needed to believe. But something in Taylor's as the last time they spoke wouldn't leave him. So he reached out to the lab directly. And that's when it all came crashing down. A technician at the hospital's genetics department flagged the inconsistencies. The ultrasound imaging metadata didn't match Sheila's body scan. The blood work identifiers had been overwritten. The security logs showed unauthorized access under a terminated staff code. The entire story unraveled in a matter of hours. Deacon confronted Sheila in the same room where she had first claimed she was pregnant. She tried to spin it, to cry, to claim fear and desperation. "I just wanted us to be a family," she sobbed. "I just wanted you to stay. You wanted to control me," Deacon said. "You thought a baby would be the chain. But you didn't care who got hurt." He left. Not in anger, but in disgust. But Sheila wasn't finished. 2 days later, Taylor received an envelope. No return address. Inside, a notarized document from a fertility clinic in Palmdale. A legally recognized embryo preservation agreement. Father, Deacon Sharp. Mother, Marla Kinney. And below that, a scribbled note in red ink. "I never lose, Taylor. I just changed the game." The war wasn't over. It had only changed shape. Because now it wasn't just about lies. It was about legal rights. About frozen embryos. About who had control and who had the guts to fight for it. And for the first time, Taylor realized this wasn't just about Deacon. This was about a child. A real one. And Sheila intended to claim it. At any cost. In the sterile gray visiting room of the county detention facility, the air hung heavy with disinfectant, sweat, and unsaid truths. Luna sat across from her mother, Poppy, separated by a scratched plexiglass divider. Gone were the warm reassurances, the tearful whispers of hope from earlier visits. This time, Poppy's face was cold, stripped of pretense, her voice steady and sharp. "You need to stop waiting for Bill Spencer to save you," she said without emotion. "He might care. He might even love you in his own way. But he won't go to war for you. Not unless there's something in it for him." Luna blinked, stunned by the bluntness. "Mom, no," Poppy cut in. "You think this is about feelings. It's not. This is about survival. And if you want to make it out of this with your baby, you need to stop pretending like you're still in some high-rise Forrester penthouse. You're not. You're in the system now. And it doesn't care who your father might be or who Bill is. Poppy pulled a folded document from her binder and slid it under the glass. Luna hesitated before picking it up. It was a medical directive and advanced health care proxy. What is this? Luna asked, her voice hollow. A plan, Poppy replied. You're 8 months pregnant, in custody, in a compromised facility. You could go into labor tomorrow. If that happens and something goes wrong, they'll make decisions for you. Unless someone already has your medical power of attorney. Luna's hands trembled. You're saying I could die? I'm saying, Poppy said slowly, you need to be ready if no one gets there in time. It was a chilling conversation. And Luna left the visit with more than just papers in her hands. She carried a weight that hardened into resolve. That night, she reviewed everything. Alone in her cell, under flickering lights and the constant hum of security cams, she made a choice. She wasn't going to wait for anyone, not Bill, not the Forresters, not her mother. She was going to act. Within 48 hours, Luna filed a formal petition with the court to be transferred to a private, specialized medical facility closer to the city center. The request was simple on the surface: better care, safer conditions for childbirth, and mental health support during incarceration. But it struck a nerve, because tied to the request was a legal question no one had been prepared to answer. Did a pregnant woman in state custody, especially one facing unresolved charges, have the right to choose where she gave birth? The court was immediately split. Advocacy groups jumped in. Legal scholars weighed in online. News outlets lit up with debates. And before anyone in the Spencer camp could control the spin, the story had gone public. Prison birthrights. Does Luna deserve a say? Read the headline on Spencer's own online outlet. It wasn't meant to go live, but someone inside leaked it. Possibly intentional. Possibly sabotage. Bill Spencer didn't need a press advisor to tell him what this meant. The pressure was now on him. The public was watching. The optics had shifted. Luna wasn't a socialite in scandal anymore. She was a young, pregnant woman fighting for dignity in a broken system. And the longer Bill stayed silent, the more it looked like abandonment. In his office, with the blinds drawn, Bill stared at Luna's transfer request. His jaw was locked. They forced her hand, he muttered. They cornered her. Katie walked in, holding her phone. It's all over the wire. They're already quoting her petition word for word. If we don't get ahead of this, she'll be painted as the martyr and you'll be the billionaire who left her to rot. I didn't leave her, Bill snapped. Then say something, Katie challenged. Make a statement. Go public. Show you're fighting for her, not watching from your throne. He shook his head. It's too early. We had a plan. We were building the case privately, waiting until the court calendar opened. Well, now it's wide open, she said, dropping the latest poll data on his desk. And you're already behind. Meanwhile, at Forrester Creations, the fallout was immediate. Steffi saw the headlines and didn't wait for the PR team. We need to coordinate with Spencer right now, she ordered. If Luna's case becomes a public campaign, every brand associated with her will be dragged into it, us included. And we've got a fall line weeks away from launch. Thomas sat in the corner, arms folded. We can't bury this. If she's standing up for herself, we either support it or risk looking like we're still trying to shut her down. We're not, Steffi said quickly. But public perception doesn't care. They just want a villain. In response, Bill moved. He issued a short but powerful statement to the press. Luna's request is both justified and overdue. No one should give birth in fear. We are working with her legal team to support her transfer and ensure she receives the care and dignity she deserves. It was enough to stop the bleeding. For now. Behind the scenes, Bill mobilized Spencer's legal firepower. 2 senior attorneys were placed on Luna's case full-time. Lobbyists were dispatched to influence state correctional policy. A special medical transport was pre-approved and funded anonymously. But Poppy saw it for what it was: In a second jailhouse meeting, she warned Luna they're moving now because it suits them, not because they care. You forced their hand. That power? Don't give it back, Luna nodded. She understood. The power dynamic had shifted. She was no longer the victim of circumstance. She had agency and the world had noticed. By the end of the week, a judge granted the emergency transfer. Luna was moved under armed guard to a high-security maternity ward in downtown Los Angeles. The move triggered more headlines, more opinion pieces, more protest signs outside the courthouse. But for Luna, the noise faded the moment she stepped into a real hospital room. It had a window, a clean bed, a nurse who smiled without suspicion. For the first time in months, she felt human again. Bill visited days later. No cameras, no entourage, just him. When he stepped into the room, Luna was sitting up, cradling her swollen belly, watching the city through the glass. "You did this," he said softly. "You stood up. You didn't wait for me," she looked at him. Her face was calm, but there was no trace of the girl who used to wait for someone to rescue her. "I couldn't afford to wait," he nodded. "I'm here now, I know," she replied. "But I'm not giving up my voice just because you are." He gave a faint smile. Wouldn't dream of it. Across town, Poppy remained behind bars. Her plan had been simple: prepare her daughter for the worst. But what she hadn't expected was Luna finding power in that preparation, turning fear into action. Her daughter wasn't just surviving the system, she was bending it. And as the Spencer team recalibrated their next moves and the Forrester camp raced for whatever came next, one thing was clear: Luna was no longer the girl trapped in scandal. She was the woman redefining the fight.